Hey, what's going on? Peace, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Ops Podcast. This is part two of a series entitled The Relationship Keys. And in the first episode, we talked about being compatible, compromise, and communication. In this episode, we're going to go into three other topics, which I feel like are essential. And those three topics are trust, teachable, and transparency. And I picked those topics because I feel like those under those umbrellas of those six topics, we can cover a lot of ground as far as, what I'm saying, getting to the basis of relationships and why things are the way they are. And let me just start off by saying, ultimately, especially in our culture, I feel like it's been a strategic attack on the division. And what do I mean by that, double R? Well, the way that there are programs that incentivize, the separation. What kind of programs are those? Those are different programs to where, for instance, Section 8. Section 8 is an incentive to where it will allow for compensation of rent as long as there's no man in the home. And that doesn't always just fall on the black culture. That can be other cultures as well, but those are incentivized systems put in place to further divide the household. And then dividing the household from years back, that's the problem why where we see today, men are asking women, why can't they be more submissive? And women are stuck on, some women are stuck on, being independent women and things like that. And at the end of the day, yeah, you want to always have some self sufficiency and independence, but when it comes to sustaining a family or raising, your children to be better and to be, more well off in the world than we were, then that takes a partnership, and that division between that partnership has just become, it's just become pretty much demolished. You know what I'm saying? And that's why today relationships are so hard to build because of the psychology that has been put in place to separate us. You know what I'm saying? From Section 8, EBT, uh, different ways that they attack you. You know what I'm saying, on child support and stuff like that. Those are all strategic ways to build tension between a man and a woman, especially the black man and the woman, because that's where the power lies as far as the connection. If we can stay connected, then it's easy to, you know, raise up women that are more submissive. It's easy to raise up men that are leaders that are being taught things as opposed to men that have, kind of have some female tendencies because they've been raised by females. And then you see the difference in the dynamic of men who are raised, what I'm saying, in a dual parent household, men who are raised by their fathers, and men who are raised by their just strictly by their mothers. And the same goes for the women. The women who are raised strictly by their mothers, kind of have an attitude of independence and I don't need nobody and I'm not going to submit and the man has to do X, Y, and Z, when ultimately God made man to be able to lead the woman and teach the woman. The woman is supposed to come into the situation as a helpmeet. And, you know, it's just been so far from, what I'm saying, how God designed it because of the strategic systems put in place that it leads me to my first topic, which is trust. Trust ultimately is the belief in the belief in the reliability of someone. So there is no trust. And there's no trust because you can't believe that this person is going to be reliable when they come into the situation with an attitude like, I don't need anything. Well, if you don't need anything, then you're going to also feel like, most likely in certain circumstances, you're going to feel like you don't need to help me with nothing. You don't need to motivate me with nothing. You don't need to, what I'm saying, make sure my energy is on the right level so when I go out into the world, what I'm saying, I can be the best version of myself and come back home and bring essential, what I'm saying, tangible things as a leader would bring into the situation, because now it's been so jaded to where, the definition of a provider is just strictly a financial thing. And men, we all know we provide in more ways than one. And a lot of times, even when we provide financially, for some of us, there's not a lot left for us personally, because we're pouring everything into the relationship with that woman, with those children, with whatever it is that, what I'm saying, that we're trying to see multiply and grow. So the trust has become, tainted on both sides. Men don't trust women, women don't trust men. And that's all part of the psychology that was put in place to make one another feel like they don't need them. And a lot of the trust comes from, a lot of the trust comes from just lack of getting to know one another. And you know what I'm saying? And like when I'm in relationships, as an older man, one of the first questions I would ask is, "What's your relationship with your father? What was the dynamic that you had with your father to be able to see how certain things go, as far as a woman being led? Did you see your mother and your father arguing? Did you see your mother and your father getting along in a, what I'm saying, a normal dynamic to where he was the leader of the household and she pretty much helped him lead?" Because the way I see it, the man is set to lead the woman and instill things in the woman, and the woman is there to help the man be a leader. And together, the man and woman is to, what I'm saying, instill those values and teach and give balance to the children that are in the house with them. And that's just my opinion. I know there's more to it. We can go in depth, but I'm trying to stay on track with just the whole trust factor, because the whole trust factor, I feel like, even situations where, men and women are married, the trust isn't at a point to where it should be, because for one, coming into a situation as a man, you have to be bred and taught how to be a leader. And a lot of times people get married too soon, or they get married based on the wrong premises, and they're in that relationship trying to learn, still trying to learn things about themselves. And the best teacher is experience. So a lot of times women don't trust men, or men don't trust women that have been with, various other partners, a lot of other partners. But those are sometimes those are stronger women, because they've seen different experience. They've experienced different things. And if they've taken something from every situation and they able to build upon themselves, then that makes them stronger going into a relationship. Same thing with the man. Like for me, I've been in, multiple relationships. I've lived with multiple different women. So that taught me, every time I exited a situation, that taught me things about myself. That taught me things about the woman. That taught me how to be a better leader for the situation that ultimately, what I'm saying, God situated me in, that's, set in stone right now. What I'm saying, with the woman I have, because I feel like, we have the trust, we have the transparency. What I'm saying, we're both teachable. We'll sit down and listen to each other, and what I'm saying, and have those things that are going to build that trust over time. And, you know, we both did the work on ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like if the man doesn't seek God and the provisions from God first, then he's not gonna, what I'm saying, he's not gonna have that God in him to where he can kind of lead the family dynamic, what I'm saying, as God designed, because he's operating off of worldly vibrations that are not godly vibrations. And he's susceptible to follow, things that he sees on social media and stuff like that. And the same thing with the women. You know what I'm saying? If they haven't been around, a God fearing, man that has that vibration and that's, operating based on how God will see things or how God designed it, then it's going to be hard for them to come into a situation and listen. It's going to be hard for them to come into a situation and to be teachable, because being teachable is willing to learn and being open to being taught and capable of being instructed. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of women, and I don't want to say a lot of women, but certain women in certain age brackets, let's just put it like that, in certain age brackets where they're less mature, they're not willing to learn and they're not open to being taught. But yet you hear them say, I want a man, I want a God fearing man, I want a man that's going to lead, I want this and that. But you have to understand and you have to be able to recognize that man when you see him. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes I know, even as a leader in different situations, you're not always leading from the front. Sometimes you're leading from the back of the pack because you need to be able to see things from a different lens, from a different scope, from a different perspective. And when the women come in and automatically feel like, if you leading me, you got X, Y, Z, this, that, and the other, when ultimately a man can be sitting back and pretty much observing how he can lead, how he can, fulfill those things that are missing in that relationship, in that household, in the, whatever it may be in the dynamic based on that particular situation. So if we don't know what it looks like because we haven't had the examples because of the systematic infiltration and the way that the system has separated the man and woman in the household, then how can we really understand who we looking for? Is it based on what you see on social media and what you're hearing, or is it based on the examples that were set by your mother and father? And I was blessed because I grew up in a two family household. I grew up where I seen moms and pops, communicate and have a certain dynamic. You know what I'm saying? So that brought me up to speed as far as myself being able to lead and being able to, fill that role in a certain dynamic. And I always fear God and I always put God first as best as I can, and have them the center, have God to be the center of my surroundings. So if I'm always going to God for wisdom and seeking my purpose in that life, ultimately that's what I was going to attract. And ultimately, that's what I attracted after, taking myself serious and getting out of situations and being honest with myself and not allowing myself to stick around situations that I knew just wasn't, you know what I'm saying, just wasn't all the way there, just wasn't all the way, saying everything that I wanted and needed. And not to bring you in the circle, but those situations came from being with people that I wanted, that I pursued, that I chased, or whatever it may be. You understand what I'm saying, fellas? And a lot of times it comes down to staying grounded in your purpose, staying on that mission, staying on that grind, and allowing your energy to attract who God has for you. And my situation that I'm in now is that's kind of how it happened. You know what I'm saying? I went into the dark. I was doing this work on myself. I was trying to get closer to God. I was trying to, live out my purpose. And through that, the energy that I attracted was somebody who was a help me, somebody who was willing to allow me to lead. And I feel like those things were only connected because of the work that each of us did on each other. And we were both, going back to being teachable, we were both teachable. We were both willing to learn and open to being taught new things about each other. And those things that we were willing to learn and be taught about each other opened up, the communication. It opened up me being able to see if I was really compatible. It opened up, the real level for compromise to be able to, agree on certain things and even disagree on the same things. So I feel like those dynamics, are the keys that are missing from the relationships today. And that's why we see so many podcasts, that are talking about relationships, relationships, relationships. People want to know, people want to figure out why. And it's like they seeking the wrong answers, you know. You're seeking the answers from social media. You're seeking the answers from what you can see in the world as opposed to, making sure that if you want a leader, first of all, that man has to be led by God. That man can't be led by the world. He can't be led by material things. He can't be led by, things that are outside of, the realm of righteousness and things like that. Otherwise, you ain't gonna have no leader. You just gonna have somebody that's with you and y'all gonna, y'all gonna most likely get to a certain point to where there's gonna be friction created because he's not necessarily all the way in his purpose. And you haven't been all the way groomed and taught how to be led because of the lack of examples. So there's going to come to a point to where you're going to fall back into your independence. He's going to get consumed and sucked in by the world. And you're going to be back to asking questions. You're going to be back to, getting out there in the world. Man, the funniest thing I've seen, and this ain't even funny, but it just goes to support, the destruction of the relationships and the whole family dynamic. There were everybody know about Pop the Balloon. There was a episode, and I know the host is probably trolling or whatever, but ultimately you have to look at it for what it is. Even if he's trolling and the people coming on there are whatever, trying to get notoriety or whatever, there are 60, 70, 80-year old men and women on the show. And you can say they're looking for love. You can say they're looking for, I don't know what the hell they're looking for at that age, except to be healthy and to be, closer to God. But they're on the show and they're actually looking for, a partner. And it's like, it's one of those things to me too, where it goes back to if that man isn't being led by God, what led those men to go on that stage in their 60s, in their 70s, and having 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 the thought of mine that these women were going to come on to this show and I was going to find me the one after I've been married one, two, three, some of them even four times. And it's like, we have to do the work on ourselves. We have to be self-teachable. I know I'm on the second topic, which is talking about being teachable, but we have to be teachable to ourselves. We have to be willing to learn about ourselves. We have to be willing to rebuild ourselves. I heard something profound the other day by Mr. Farrakhan, and he said that there hasn't been one war where you haven't had to make a strategic retreat. Think about that. I don't care what battle it was, World War One, Two, Afghanistan. I'm talking about real life wars. There was always some point in that war, in that battle, where either side had to make a strategic retreat. We got to draw back, and we got to go back to the drawing board, and we got to strategize on how we're going to come out better, how we're going to be more effective, how we're going to do these things. And those are the same things that we have to do in our lives. We have to retreat strategically after we've been in a situation that didn't work. And we have to do that work on ourselves and we have to rebuild ourselves so that way when we come out, we better and we don't cross that same road and make those same mistakes of, being being incapable of the compromise, the communication, the compatibility, and not having the trust, not being teachable, not knowing how to be transparent and open and communicate. You know what I'm saying? Those are things that we have to retreat and build upon. and make sure that we seeking those things and we looking for those provisions to come from the higher source. A lot of times we feel like we have all the answers ourselves, and we've already been given, you know, we've already been given the map. I'm saying, whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Quran, we've already been, whatever your religious, I'm saying, beliefs are, and whatever, book that you follow, that you refer to for guidance, we've already been given the navigation systems. But yet and still we'll try to draw those things from ourselves, from a mind and body in place that's already unknowing, or else we wouldn't be in the situation in the first place. We'll go back and we'll think to ourselves and we'll beat ourselves over the head instead of seeking the answers from the source. And that's just being self-taught. That's being able to be teachable and understand that I don't know everything. So the things I don't know, I need to seek answers from God. God will show me how to be a better leader. He'll show me how to be a better father. He'll show me how to be a better, provider and all those things, just based on me seeking the answers from the right source. It's like when you're trying to like, say you're trying to develop a product or something, what I'm saying? There's levels of people that you want to get a critique from. You want to get a critique from an expert. You want to get a critique from somebody who's going to, go with it and just side with it. And then you want to get a critique from somebody who is going to find something wrong. And those are going to give you different sources to feed off from, because the expert is going to give me game that I can utilize and be like, well, this is going to work. This ain't going to work. The person in the middle who's always going to agree with it, I love you, your family, whatever, they're going to keep you in the game, keep you motivated. And that hater is the biggest one, because that hater is going to give you something that a lot of the world may see through that same lens, and that's going to allow you to be, more solution based and be able to provide a real solution that even the hater can't dissect. And those are the ways that we have to approach ourselves and approach our relationships. And we got to make sure we're talking to the right people if we're going to talk to anybody at all. And that's why I know in the community, we hear a lot of people saying now, more or less now, they're going to seek that therapy, because we all suffer those traumas. You know what I'm saying? Whether we want to hold those things liable for, our behavior and our habits nowadays, everybody suffers some type of trauma. You know, I suffered a trauma when I lost my mom, and I went on one, and I stopped caring about myself, and I was making costly mistakes and just, what I'm saying, being with different women and stuff like that, and not even really, caring about myself or doing the work on myself to heal from the trauma. You understand what I'm saying? And those are things that we all go through, and we have to be willing to be taught. We have to willing to learn and open to being taught that, yes, this is something that I suffer from. And if I don't get help, or if I don't get correction on it, if I don't get that feedback from those sources, then I won't be able to move on gracefully. These are things that are going to come back and haunt me, and they're going to, deteriorate my relationships from the inside out, because I'm still suffering from certain things. So those are all things that, we have to take responsibility for, and be willing to be teachable inside a relationship, outside a relationship, and just within ourselves. The last topic. So I've discussed trust, belief in the reliability of someone, and that was when I covered, being able to rely on someone based on, how they've been raised, how they've been groomed, how they see you, how they view you, if they've been, what I'm saying, systematically oppressed or divided, what I'm saying, through those different resources and incentives that are put out there. Being teachable, willing to learn, willing to openly be taught and understand things. That's vital in a relationship, because, man, if you're with a woman and you can't tell her nothing, and she's not willing to be taught or learn nothing new, then you need to let her go, because you can't lead somebody who's not willing to be led. And that's part of being, like we hear, that's part of being submissive, because a submissive woman will submit to your words. She will submit to your instruction as long as you, as a man, are living in your purpose and you being led by God. You can't be being led by the world and then come home to your woman and try to lead her based on what you got from the world. You're gonna lose her every time. She ain't gonna stick around for that bullshit. So you have to make sure you as a man are being led by the right source before you consider being able to lead her in any type of direction. On to number 3, transparency. Transparency is a big one because a lot of times it stems from the first two topics of trust and being teachable. Because if I don't trust you, then I can't be transparent, open, and vulnerable. And I know if you're not a teachable person, then it's kind of in vain anyway for me to be transparent. By definition, open, honest communication, proactively disclosing info with your partner and sharing your unfiltered. That's why it's transparent, because it's unfiltered. We're not gonna water it down. We're not gonna put a filter on it. I'm gonna give it to you straight how it is. And because you trust me, you believe in the reliability of me, because you're teachable, willing to learn, and open to being taught, and capable of being instructed, and you're gonna listen, then I can come to you with my unfiltered thoughts and my feelings. And ultimately, transparency is what builds a deeper level of trust. All those things are connected. Think about it. If we can be transparent and we can have these open and honest and unfiltered, talks about any and everything, then ultimately it's going to build the reliability, because I can come to you as a man and I could tell you, damn, baby, yeah, I'm running my own business, and man, this last 2 months, shit's been rough. You know what I'm saying? I've been getting hit from all different sides, and things have been attacking me. I ain't been able to, generate the normal things that I've been generating. You know what I'm saying? You got any ideas? And this is a real conversation that I have with my woman. I've been there. I'm there now, to where there's days and there's weeks to where it's not always how I want it. Running your own business, being an entrepreneur, is one of the hardest things in the world. People don't understand that. And that's because they seen it from a worldly perspective that's jaded, and people is only showing you the false wins and giving you a false narrative of what it really is. And that takes work. And for a woman to be with an entrepreneur, she has to really trust that man. She has to be teachable and open to learn. And that man has to be transparent in his feelings and his actions, because that's, as an entrepreneur, that's our battery. That's what we plug into. You know what I'm saying? We plug into our women at the house. We plug into them through being transparent and having those unfiltered, talks and communication, and things that are going to give us momentum and energy to go back out into the world the next day and be able to, not get caught up on the fears and the anxieties, and and ultimately, you know, have what God gave us, which is love, power, resilience, and all those things, everything outside the spirit of fear. And the spirit of fear has come from basically the devil. God didn't instill that spirit in us. And just to get off topic for a second, I put something up the other day about peace. Peace is not the absence of problems. And peace is not the absence of, conflict or situation. Peace is a posture that we take in those problems, in those conflicts, in those situations, in those circumstances, to where we can still take a certain posture and not let those things just beat us down and wear on our psychic and wear on our character and change who we are. And a lot of times we don't get peace in the relationships we in, because we don't have the transparency. So the woman is wondering, man, nigga, why you walking around here acting like, you got an attitude or this or that? And us sometimes being men, we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to open up and express those things that are going on. And a lot of times, I feel like in the situations that I was in, I'm only going to use myself as an example. The situations where I was in, where I was not as open, not as transparent, and I wasn't willing to be vulnerable, is because that woman that I was with, I felt like wasn't as teachable, wasn't as trustworthy with those things. And I ultimately wasn't always seeking God to help me lead. Sometimes I was going to the world, sometimes I was going to my friends and not getting the right information or not feeding from the right source. So when I would come back, my mind was jaded. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have the right perspective to be able to, share those things as a man. And in my mind, it was already, oh, I can't tell her this, I can't tell her that. And ultimately, that just created conflict. You know what I'm saying? And not to put any fault on the other person, because I take full responsibility of that, because that was me as a man not going to the right sources and seeking, guidance from outside instead of from inside, which God is going to, what I'm saying, rebuild and restructure us from the inside out. So I think that, just to sum it up in these last two episodes, communication, um, compromise, compatibility, trust, being teachable, and being transparent are six ways that, if we're making sure that those six things are covered and we have those under the umbrella in our relationship, and we're honest about those things. We got to be honest that we got good sound communication, and that's going to come through being transparent. We got to be honest that, what I'm saying, we're willing to compromise, and we learn that from being teachable. We got to be honest that, what I'm saying, that we're truly compatible, and saying that comes from trusting and believing in the reliability of something, what I'm saying, or someone. Because I'm not compatible. I'm not compatible with somebody that I can't trust. I'm not compatible with somebody that's unteachable. I'm not compatible with somebody that's, what I'm saying, not willing to be transparent and open and honest. You know what I'm saying? And I can't compromise if we're not transparent. I can't compromise if I don't trust you. I can't compromise if you're not teachable. You understand what I'm saying? And all those things are intertwined into, one, to form that umbrella under the relationship, to where I feel like if we can recognize, first of all, the issue, there's a systematic plan of division and incentivize, what I'm saying, incentivized structures that have been put in place to, deteriorate the relationship, especially, what I'm saying, in the black and Latino communities, then we can recognize where we need to start the work at. We can recognize how we build the foundation. We can be empathetic to, what I'm saying, the woman that grew up in the single parent household. Women can recognize the man that hasn't really sought out after God to learn how to lead. And he's seeking his provisions from the world. And through that, through love, I feel like those things can be those things can be restructured. Those things can be revised to where, if you really love somebody and you recognize these things, you two as a couple can build upon those things, and you can restore what's been divided through the incentivized programs and things like that. And ultimately, you can build a healthy, honest relationship. And, you know, that's just my spin on it, because I know it took me years to be able to see where I was going wrong. Like I was saying before, the trauma that we suffer, and, the lack of getting the right therapy and the lack of getting the right help, it just prolongs the process. And then when we do get into situations, we don't know what things to look for as a red flag. We basing our red flags off of what we get from the world. Everybody has their own red flags based on your lens, your scope, how you see things, your perspective. My perspective is gonna, you know what I'm saying, is gonna raise different flags than the next man's perspective who hasn't been through the things that I've been through, who hasn't lost the things that I've lost, who hasn't experienced the things that I've been, who hasn't felt the pain that I've felt. His red flags are gonna be totally different. And we have to understand that. So we have to make sure that, you know what I'm saying, we're being individuals in the framework that we laying down and the understanding that we doing and teaching ourselves about ourselves and going back into the source and making sure that we're being led by him and not by man. And that's it. That's all I can give y'all for, for this episode. I'm not going to drag it out. I feel like there's definitely some good points, you know what I'm saying? Some bullet points that you can take some things from. And man, make sure you like, comment, and share these episodes. You know what I'm saying? Because I got something, powerful, and it just motivated me to keep going the other day. There was a brother that, I just see in passing. You know what I'm saying? I own a barber suite. I work with a barber suite with my partner Jay that you see with on the podcast. And in that building, there's a lot of different people, a lot of different barbers. There's a younger barber that started following the other day. And I was outside drinking my coffee, and he came up to me and he was like, "Man, I've been tapping into your podcast. And I just wanted to say, man, I appreciate it. And there's been a lot for me to learn, you know what I'm saying, as a young man. And for me, like, that's everything because that's that's confirmation for me that I'm fulfilling the purpose, that I'm able to reach just one person. If I'm able to reach one person through sitting up here and, you know what I'm saying, sharing my experiences and sharing my thoughts and doing the research and different things to try to help others. If I'm able to reach that one person, then I've already fulfilled the purpose of being on the Real Ops podcast, where the only opposition is in your mind. That's the only opposition is in your mind and what we allow to become our perspective that we take out into the world. And I feel like, oh, this is an opposition against me. This is an opposition against me. When at the end of the day, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I'm being led by a higher power. And as long as I'm being led by that higher power, then I will always be able to stay focused on my purpose. So once again, man, I just want to share that with y'all because that's why I do this. That's why I'm in this, to win it. Because I want to reach the younger generation. I want to reach the younger brothers and sisters coming up to be able to help them avoid the mistakes that I made, avoid the situations that I've been in. And if you can't avoid it, know how to maneuver through that pain, know how to maneuver in business, know how to maneuver in a relationship, know how to understand emotional intelligence and just various things that we cover here on the Real Ops podcast, man. So like, comment, subscribe, make sure you share this episode out. And if there was something you missed, don't hesitate to go back and rewind it. And it's just food for thought. And I'm always leaving for y'all to do the dishes, man. Until next time, peace, stay blessed, and stay focused on your purpose. Thank y'all for tapping in.